All right, today we're diving into the secret history of a really powerful idea, one that draws a straight line from the great speakers of ancient Greece all the way to the founder of modern psychoanalysis. Let's get into it.
I know. It sounds like the beginning of a very weird joke, right? But the answer actually cracks open a whole forgotten tradition that has literally shaped how we understand our own minds. And that connection, well, that's the mystery we're going to unravel today.
You know, when we hear the word mnemonics, memory tricks, we tend to think of it as, well, a little quaint, kind of nerdy, something for a world before we had phones and computers to remember everything for us. But what if that view is missing the real story? What if this so-called arcane art is still all around us, just wearing a totally different disguise? And that's really the big idea for today. The theory that this incredibly powerful, ancient way of thinking didn't just vanish, it just turned inward. It became a blueprint for the most complicated place imaginable, the human mind. So where does this all start? Well, not in a doctor's office, but at a disaster scene. As the story goes, the poet Simonides of Chios was at a big banquet when the roof of the hall came crashing down. He was the only one who made it out. The victims were unrecognizable, but Simonides realized he could identify every single person just by mentally walking through the room and remembering where each guest was sitting. And that horrible moment led to a huge breakthrough.
And that became the art of memory. Now you got to remember, in a world without widespread printing, this wasn't just a neat trick. It was a foundational skill. By linking facts to really vivid, strange images, and then placing those images inside an imaginary building, a memory palace, an orator could store and retrieve just staggering amounts of information.
Okay, so how in the world do you actually build a palace in your head? Well, the process is this really cool mix of architecture, wild imagination, and some serious discipline.
First, you pick a place you know, like the back of your hand. Your childhood home, maybe a museum, that's your palace. Next, you turn the things you want to remember into really bizarre, emotional, unforgettable images. Why? Because our brains are hardwired to remember the weird and the wonderful. Then, you place those images at specific spots, or loci, along a set path in your palace. And whenever you need to remember the information, you just take a mental walk. Each spot triggers the image, and the image triggers the fact. Simple as that.
For centuries, this was a super practical tool for speakers and scholars. But then, during the Renaissance, something totally wild happened. The art of memory went through this radical, mind-bending transformation. And this is where the ambition just explodes. I mean, look at this. For the ancient world, the memory palace was basically a mental filing cabinet. Super useful, but that's it. For the Renaissance thinkers, though, oh no. They saw it as something so much bigger. They thought a perfectly built memory palace didn't just hold facts, it actually mirrored the divine, hidden order of the entire universe. Exactly. The person who mastered this wasn't just a good speaker anymore, they were a magus, a kind of magician. They believed that by mastering memory, they could literally tap into the mind of God and understand the secret workings of reality. Memory became this key to, well, esoteric power. But as you can imagine, with the rise of modern science and the printing press, this magical view started to fade away. But the art itself didn't die. It just changed its focus. It turned away from the cosmos out there and pointed toward the universe in here. And this timeline just lays it all out for us. You can see the handoff. It starts as a practical tool with Simonides. It becomes this mystical cosmic map for Bruno. And then it gets reshaped again by an 18th century philosopher named Giambattista Vico. And his twist on it is what paved the road directly to Freud and the unconscious. Vico had this absolutely brilliant insight. He basically applied the art of memory to time instead of space. He proposed that the real story of history wasn't about battles and kings, but about how our own consciousness evolved. How did our earliest ancestors think? What did the world feel like to them? Vico's big idea was that early humans thought in these powerful, poetic metaphors, what he called tropes. Those were the original images they used to grasp the world. He argued that all of our modern abstract language is built on top of this ancient, forgotten poetic foundation. So for Vico, the art of memory was a kind of mental archaeology, digging for the very origins of our own awareness. And That is what finally brings us back to that famous doctor's office in Vienna. Vico's hunt for the forgotten images of humanity's childhood created the exact framework for Freud's hunt for the forgotten images of an individual's childhood.
See, just like the Renaissance magus wanted a key to the universe, Freud wanted a key to the psyche. He was completely fascinated with mapping its hidden architecture, figuring out the deep structure that's really running the show beneath our conscious awareness.
So what did Freud find in the depths of our minds? Potent images, of course. He gave them a special name, screen memories. These were seemingly innocent little memories from childhood that once you looked closer turned out to be anything but. They were just like the mnemonists' images. They stood for something else. They were a defense, a symbol that both hid a painful truth and at the same time pointed right at it.
And this table just nails the final transformation. Psychoanalysis is, in a way, the modern art of memory, just turned inside out. The palace isn't a building anymore, it's the unconscious mind. The striking images aren't things you create to remember facts. They're screen memories you have to decode. And the master of this art, the mnemonist, is now the psychoanalyst. The goal is no longer just recalling information. It's recovering a person's lost, true history.
Think about it. Both are interpreters of images. The ancient orator walked through his mental palace to deliver a perfect speech. The psychoanalyst, well, they guide a patient through the landscape of their unconscious, interpreting the symbolic images, the dreams, the Freudian slips, the screen memories, to piece together the story of who they are. It's a journey back in time, and images are the guideposts.
So, in the end, the art of memory was never just about remembering a grocery list. It's this powerful testament to our deep human need to find order in chaos, to make maps of the worlds we live in, both outside and inside ourselves. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. What forgotten palaces are hidden in your own mind, and what truths might they be waiting to reveal?